Hey, nothing but funky music here, man. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RangerRob Country Living Podcast. And yes, sir, Bob, I got to yell at Aimee. Amy's in trouble.
Oh no!
Yeah,
What I do?
you know why?
No.
You made me buy a horse.
What?
I bought a horse.
You did?
Yep,
Both ends or just one end?
I got a horse. Here. And
Okay.
it's within my budget, but yeah, I can't afford the kind of horses you got, Aimee. But I
Nope.
got mine. Mine gives me
I
kisses.
can barely afford them. Very good.
Yeah. So
It looks like you ought to try and terrorize the dogs with it or something. They might.
I spent a lot of money for that little stunt.
You know what they call that in the broadcast media? That's called a sight gag. You hold something up like that. Yeah, it's a sight gag. So
It's kind of hard to do when I'm not left-handed very well here. But
yeah.
I was going to bring it in from the other side. I was all ready to do it, and then I got ready to start the show, and I realized the microphone's in the way.
That's like the reporter that holds the ruler in the snow and goes, "Oh, look, we got 3 or 4 inches here." You know.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Why the long face?
Oh.
Yeah.
He didn't catch mine. I asked him if he bought both ends of the horse, or just one.
All right. Well, I need to get everybody introduced here. Of course, on the top of the screen here, about with the beautiful pink hair, is Aimee from DragonFly Farm. Do you call your place DragonFly Farm or Farms?
No S, but it doesn't matter. You can
Okay,
call it whatever you want.
I noticed I actually typed it wrong in something I was doing and going, oh, is it Farms or Farm?
Yeah,
Anyway, Aimee, welcome to the show. Of course, in our bottom, be my right-hand corner. No, my left-hand corner. John Smith from Backyard Politics down in Arizona. We're trying to get him enthusiastic to start getting some new shows going. Has a brilliant show. Do you still have your YouTube channel? Or you?
I do. I just haven't used it.
All right, and you're also on Rumble, right?
I am. I'm on Rumble as well.
Yeah,
and anywhere you can find a podcast.
Darn right. And last but not least, we have cranky ass. We have Dale Wiley.
All right.
He's here with us today, and he's the one that kind of keeps us grounded, and we appreciate that a lot. So we got all kinds of generations here. I think we have like 3-decade difference around in this show, so that's kind of good. I like it.
That's what makes it good.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, we got Dale as old as dirt, so we got everything covered.
Yeah, it's although I bought some cheap shoes at Weimar. I wore them out and hurt my back and made me feel horrible. I threw those things away and got some new ones. I feel great now. I'm just walking around the farm with no pain. So good shoes. Don't buy that cheap crap.
Apparently. So we actually have interesting subjects today, and I need to follow up a little bit from last week's show. So last week, what the heck did we talk about last week? We talked about what did we talk about? I think here for a minute. We were talking about staying at home and having a hard time getting out, being busy, having the homestead, and also we're finding we talked about homeschooling a lot, which is we kind of fell into that. Anyway, and why I want to bring that up is I've gotten some comments, and then I've watched some other shows and even Fox News, and people are kind of studying some of these shootings that are going on. And the sad part, and they're terrible, is, they involve kids and young kids. And it's not just that, it's the crime and et cetera. And it's like, and the question is, it's not guns. It's what's going through their heads. What's going on with these kids? What's the problem? And so I think a lot of times in this last week's show, we kind of addressed some of the issues of, like, for example, why Aimee does the homeschooling and is doing what she's doing with her whole family unit, and 3 generations involved in the whole thing. She's running a very grounded, down to earth, working with the grandparents, working with the children. The entire family's involved in everything that's going on. They all have chores and responsibility and accountability. And so I'm kind of wondering somehow I'm sure that, Joe Biden will call us up on the phone and say, these are great recommendations. I'll do it. But I'm sure I want to continue to say on this show that is a dream that we either grew up living or like to get back to. And having Aimee on the show is amazing. It's just totally amazing. And I'm sure John, he catches some of our shows, but Aimee's got 5 acres just like us, has multi-generational families involved in it, and homeschooling, has horses and cows and the whole works. And I have never met such darling kids. I know, Dale, you got to meet the kids the other day, didn't you?
I did. It was awesome. It was great. They're a good bunch of kids.
And I also understood that I was expected to show up at the farmer's market, I guess, or pop in, and I didn't. So I apologize for those on Crooked River Ranch that I didn't pop in and say hello.
Well, that's okay. They kept coming to me and going, "Where's Ranger Rob? Where's Ranger Rob?" I go, "Oh, I think he'll be here in a little bit. He's pretty busy."
They asked me too.
Oh yeah, so it's like, yeah, at least come in and put up a cameo or something, and we can take a picture of all of us and say, "Oh, see, he was here. You missed him." And hell, we could start setting appearance times at the farmers market. Think of what that would do.
It's like, where did this come from? It's like, I just pop in once in a while. I don't have any schedule at all. And
you could demand show money and everything. I mean,
think
you just
so.
Get paid to show up.
Yeah,
that go over well.
So anyway, I wanted to kind of make sure I touched on all the things that were going on last week that seemed to relate to a lot of things going on in the news and stuff. But I think one of the things that I've been hearing a lot from Fox News, other place, is the kids are so disconnected. They're in this virtual world, virtual reality is really, and it's like there's no, and of course parenting and schools and the whole works. They're just got our kids messed up, and it really comes down to ethics and morals, where the kids, I feel like, don't have reality of some of the things that they do. I mean, I don't know. I got to feel, I can just imagine these kids that go to a school and do a shooting and actually start doing it and realize the gun's real and there's effects from it. It must be just shocking to them because they've always been in this virtual reality where nobody really gets hurt. And I don't know, it's just, that's just one aspect of the whole thing. Of course, parenting and everything else, not having parents at home because we're all working, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's kind of our reality. And so I was really glad to see some of the news agencies not attacking, of course, some of them attack guns, of course, but it's the people behind the guns and behind the parenting and stuff like that. I just want to make it clear that what we're trying to do in our show is to bring back one is homesteading, family, self-reliance, accountability. All those kinds of things are things that we're talking about in this show, one step at a time. If we help one family, we've been successful. If we do 100 families, that's great. But everyone we touch, and the other thing I want to make sure is I like to make sure that we keep it real. So you get to see all ages. You get to see us make our mistakes. You'll see that we'll try to plant food and something goes haywire. I don't know how many disasters I've had this year of trying new ideas, and it doesn't matter. You just do your best. But the thing is this is anybody can do this, and you got to start somewhere, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. I expect to make mistakes almost every day. Now, Dale, he's almost close to perfect, but the rest of us, we're just working on it. He's our model society person. So we have to bring John in just to give us some more coaching. So, yeah, but so that's why I wanted to cover a little bit from last week's show. I thought last week's show was excellent. I don't know about you guys, but I played it after it was over, and Sherry got to watch it and was like, wow, you guys talked about homeschooling a lot. I was like, we didn't mean to. It was just a really good conversation.
It's a significant issue of the day. And I mean, you talk about what's the disconnect that's going on with the kids. I've been going to my grandson's, he's 13, baseball games and everything, and just observing these kids and everything. And I don't watch a lot of news media or anything like that, so I'm not easily swayed by that stuff. I mean, I was in the business. I know every trick in the book, but you're right. There is a total disconnect that our youth have today. And it is a woke agenda that is being pushed by academia, by government, by big pharma and everything else. And the public education system is a huge part of this right now. And I mean, there's a noticeable difference in these kids that are not exposed to that garbage, like Amy's kids and the kids that I've encountered. And I've made observations at our farmers market the other day. And I mean, there was polar opposites there amongst the youth and everything else like that. Unfortunately, society manifests itself in some pretty negative ways sometimes. And while you're hoping to do, some kind of sociological changes, if this doesn't happen, the fact is schools are a soft target. They need to take that into consideration. And I don't care if it costs you $150,000 a year. You got to put armed security in every one of these facilities. And if that's what it's, going to come to, that's what you got to do. My preference is just completely leave the public education system and homeschool or private school these kids, and they're going to be better because my grandson and I have had a couple of issues here lately and everything. We work through them and everything else like that. But it's a different world out there, and there's just things that have to happen. And I used to be a former big public education person. I worked on boards, committees, and everything else. I just can't have anything to do with it anymore. It has to change.
So, John, do you have any grandkids, or is it all your kids? I know are young adults.
I do. My son is raising a 7-year-old boy, so it's my son's girlfriend's son, and he's been raising this little boy since he was 4 months old. So
Wow.
he's 7 years old now, and he was 4 months old then. But I want to kind of touch on something that was said, and it's about arming schools and trying to come up with all these solutions and putting. I've heard people talk about putting satellite police departments within schools because there's never enough room for police and police departments. So build maybe a small satellite, department, all these different things. We've talked about arming the teachers, some of the teachers that are willing to be trained, arm them and train them. But the reality of it is, and Rob, you said something earlier that kind of caught me. After they fire the bullet, do they realize what that is real, right? And I have to think that part of the problem in our country right now is the fact that this younger generation is raised, they see no value in life. So when they take a life, they have no value in their own life. They have no value in their parents' life or their grandparents' life or anything. So when they're taking a life, it's like they're numb to it. They don't care. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have taken, and I don't mean to go off on my Christian soapbox here, but we've taken
you're
God.
Good to go.
Yeah, we've taken God completely out of schools. And it's an interesting thing. I do go onto Twitter, and I'm actively involved in Twitter. And if you search the hashtag in Twitter, thoughts and prayers, you're going to find a bunch of people that are using that hashtag as we don't care about your thoughts and prayers. We don't care about what your God says. We don't care about your Bible. It's time that we forget about thoughts and prayers and focus on legislation, right? So they're trying to replace our fundamental, basically, I mean, prayer is how we fundamentally communicate with God. And they want to replace that with legislation as if that's somehow going to fix the situation. We don't have a gun problem. We've got a mental illness problem. We've got a lack
problem.
of faith problem. We've got a major problem here, and we can, no matter what we try to do to stop these things, if we don't get to the root of it, which is the value of life and faith, it's not going to change. As much as we hope it can, there isn't a legislation under the sun that's going to stop this type of stuff.
I was watching guy on Fox. Anyway, they were saying actually because of the removal of religion from our nation, which is founded, our constitution's founded on the principles, which is where we get our morals and ethics. And so as that's eroding, that's why also the less respect for our constitutional rights and laws and having it based on God doesn't mean that you can't live in this country and be an atheist or be whatever you want to be. We just still carry because typically even a lot of those people have some of the same morals and ethics as religion would be. So having that as our base, our foundation for our Constitution, is which is now lost, and that's why we're just seeing everything fall apart. And the golden rule is gone. I mean, if you want to call it that way, but even though they want to have the Christian faith brought back, does not mean we can't support other people's beliefs, because they tend to have some of the same foundations too of good and bad. So it's not saying you have to come to the United States and be a Christian, but having those principles makes us a stronger nation, and they're practically gone now. You can't even have the 10 Commandments out in the public anymore. So and I think everybody here has got Christian background. So
it's a complete lack of a moral compass of any kind. I mean, you don't necessarily have to say, no, you have to be in this religion or that religion. I mean, you can have a moral compass, and if you believe in there's a greater power of some kind or another, whatever. I mean, none of us know. We'll find out someday and everything. And so whatever moral compass you have that drives you, and whether that you could be a total atheist and still be a person that has morals and ethics and everything else like that. So, I mean, a lot of times society seems to, cloud this and compartmentalize it and everything else like that, and say, oh, you have to be, religion and all this to be a good person. No, you don't. I mean, it helps and everything else, and each person will find their own. But I mean, you either have a moral compass that's centered around morals and ethics and reality and being good to your fellow man, or you don't. That's all there is to it. And there's 1,000 factors around that.
I'm dead on in what the conversation was on, and it still kind of comes from last week's show. But I do have to proceed with what we're going to talk about in this show. And I'm going to start with Aimee, because you've been my quietest. And so we all have friends, we have family, we have all people we know and stuff. And we've been seeing, and I've actually got a story myself. My daughter called me from Arizona, and she's like, makes this crazy statement, like, I can't believe, like she just realized things are going bad. But anyway, so the question is, what habits, what kind of changes, what kind of things are starting to change in your family to support the fact that our inflation's higher, the cost of feed is higher, cost of food is higher, cost of supplies for your kids' school stuff. Are you guys making any fundamental changes in your household, or do you know? And can you also reference some of the things that you've noticed are changing, or people have told you, or friends have told you, changes they've made to help make it through this time?
Yeah. Well, you asked me before if people were reaching out to learn how to be more self-reliant, and sadly, the answer is still no. However, like your daughter, I am hearing more from my friends waking up saying, what could we do? And yet when we've given suggestions, hey, plant a garden, maybe you could purchase half a cow from a local rancher. They're to that, oh my gosh, I have to do something point, but not quite to the point of I'm going to do it, which is fine.
That's crazy.
Oh man.
Which is fine. But for us, some of the things that we've done is look ahead to the future. How much grass, hay am I going to need to feed the creatures I have now? And unfortunately, the second part of that is, do I need all the creatures that I have now? Because one of my biggest concerns is feeding my livestock. I cannot grow food for them on our setup. Therefore, I have to buy it. I can grow, make, sew. I sew a lot of my own clothes. And if I had to, I could sew clothes for everybody in my family if I had to. But so the animals is one of my biggest concerns. Do we have enough food to feed everybody? But we, besides that, we've, I don't want to go to the thrift store, so I go. I plan it on a day. If I want to stop at the thrift store, I plan it on a day I'm already going to be in town. So consolidating trips to town, making that gas count. Thankfully, with the craft shows we've been doing in our milk business, I've been able to pay cash and fill up the Jeep when I go to town. That feels really good to be able to contribute and say, I'm paying this cash to fill up my vehicle because I milked the cow and sold them. Like, it just feels really good. I've been a stay-at-home mom. I haven't had to contribute financially, but it feels really good to do that.
You bet.
And then besides that, buying in bulk, not buying all those extra snacky foods, buying food that is good for us, that I know I'm going to be able to make a meal. You know what? You don't have kids at home. You can eat all the Tootsie Rolls you want.
it's my nemesis.
Okay.
Oh, good
Hershey's
man.
chocolate bar. Yeah.
Chocolate's such a good thing.
What she said here and everything about the concern about feeding her animals and everything else. Now, this is down at the lowest end of the producer scale that you can get in somebody's backyard, producing for sustenance and some extra money. Now, if those pressures are reaching down into that level of the production cycle, imagine what they are farther up the cycle with people that have hundreds of animals and how that process is going to go. Those impacts are being felt everywhere. That is a significant thing that's going to be a problem. Can I afford these animals? Do I need to reduce the size of my herd? Do I have cash flow to do all this? Is my cash flow got to come from somewhere else? And so, this is part of the wreckage of the agricultural economy and everything that I kind of been talking about for the last year. Aimee just brought it down to a very elemental level that everybody should look at this and say, yeah, she knows what she's talking about. That's as far down the food chain as you could get. It doesn't get any lower than this group of people sitting here.
And Dustin just texted me. I asked him, we were talking before the show. We paid 23 bales at $23 per bale. And I go through a bale a day.
Grass hay?
How big are those bales, Aimee? How heavy are they?
Big?
Are those
Bigger
60 pounders?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Wow.
But we, between the horses and the cows, I go through about 3/4 to a full bale a day. Now, my cow won't make milk unless she has enough to eat. So I can't cut back on food or I won't have milk. Like, everything is connected.
Yep. That's $766 a ton retail for hay down at the onesie, twosie level and everything. So, I mean, even if you popped up into the ton category, you're probably still, the numbers I heard tossed out were, 400. Well, that horse don't eat no hay. They're raw. $450
that's why
a ton.
I got him.
Yeah, $450 a ton at the semi-load quantity and everything. So, that's horrible, and that's not going to get any cheaper.
That's amazing price. I can't believe that.
That's going to go up. And she talks about that. I mentioned last week about the VF farms out there. They didn't want to spend $25,000 a circle. I bought two bags of fertilizer today. I don't need them. I just going to store them up and everything. And they were $40 for a 50-pound bag that I paid $23 for last year. I already had two here and everything. And I thought, I don't know. Maybe I'll increase my production next year. I keep saying I'm not going to do anything. I don't know. But I thought, what the hell? I'm just going to throw the fertilizer in the shed and it'll last, for a long time because, at that level, can you imagine what the prices are going to be through, wholesale and retail distribution? Terrible.
Yeah. So on this panel, has anybody started canceling anything that has to do with subscriptions?
I'm about to cancel Disney.
I'd get rid of it.
I like some of the things Disney has, but I won't sign up for them because I just don't want another subscription. We have two things: Amazon Prime, and we have Netflix, and that's it.
That's all.
Um,
That's all I've got. I don't have anything anymore. I've got a couple of minor ones, FlightAware and some tracking, just minor things I use in another part of the media business and everything. But I don't have many subscriptions like that. I don't have many expenses or anything. Quite frankly, I don't watch a lot of TV. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube that I try to catch. If I'm not, and obviously people need to listen to us because we're going to solve this whole problem here and everything
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, subscription wise, I really Netflix and Amazon, those are my two. That's it.
Guys,
Yeah,
there's a couple free ones that just there's one called Tubi, Tubi,
Yeah, I've heard
and
that one.
if you have a smart TV, you can get Tubi. It's free, and they have a ton of shows and a ton of movies on there. And then Amazon just came out with, I think it's called Freebie or Freevee or something like that, and it's free as well, so you don't have to pay for the Amazon subscription to get it.
That won't be
So
free for long.
there's a lot of things that are coming out, but they're starting to show commercials. So if you can
Yeah.
deal with the ads in between, and they're typically 40 seconds, maybe 60 seconds long, they're out there. So to pay for Netflix and to pay for all this other stuff, in fact, my wife and I are contemplating right now canceling our Dish Network. We literally watch one or two programs on Dish Network, and in the grand scheme of things, is it worth it? I mean, I pay probably $170 for Dish Network to watch one stupid program. And that's where we have to really start to decide for ourselves what's more important. What is more important? Should we sit down with our kids and play board games, or can we go outside and do things? My neighbors now, we've got together where we're just taking walks. We're getting the family together and we're taking walks. And maybe we
Nice.
will walk up to EG's or something like that and grab a Slurpee or something like that, or the gas station, something cheap. But it's a lot cheaper to do that, and it brings the family together than trying to trying to go somewhere expensive or spend the money on Netflix and all this other nonsense. And all they're doing is filling our kids' heads full of left wing,
Yeah.
anti-God
So,
stuff anyway.
And that's the reason why we would cancel Disney. And I'm like, come on, Disney. Like, I really want to watch the new Obi-Wan series. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. But we have a list of shows on Disney Plus that my kids are not allowed to watch. And the list keeps growing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Some shows that even used to be okay. I was listening to one the other day. I was doing dishes and I said, shut
Did
that
I hear
off.
that?
Yeah. I thought,
Yeah, and
oh my
the
word.
money, the profits, they're going to educate kids. They're grooming kids into transgendered type of
Yeah.
stuff and LGBTQ and all this other type of stuff. So we're funding that, and we're trying to fight against it. And we say that we're opposed to all this stuff, but yet we continue to fund it and fund it and fund it. And you've got to just get to the point where I think your point, Amy, where it's like, I'm ready to do something. I'm just not doing it yet. And I think not only farming applies to that, but I think canceling some of this nonsense out of our lives too is, kind of that
Well, I
that same mentality.
What you're talking about there, John, I think is a very relevant point, and one that, we don't often see in the homesteading prepping world and everything else like that is you have to get your head right in this thing first. Okay. I mean, being prepared and being, a good homesteader and providing for yourself means you got to have your head on your shoulders and you got to be thinking right. And when you're watching that stuff on TV like that, I mean, the media, they're damn good at it. I mean, I was in media and I know how they work and everything. And I can sit back and go, oh, wow, that's crazy. That's just, I know right the thought pattern they're going for and everything else. And until you can remove yourself from that and start thinking about what it is that you need to do. And I mean, and Rob was talking, kind of sees ISP must have dumped that, which happens all the time, that you're looking at something like this and how much time did I waste? I mean, I mentioned there I got kicked off Twitter and everything else. And I mean, I was just going back and forth with the election and everything else. And then all of a sudden it's like, I get up in the morning, I'd sit here, and now the weather's a little nicer. It's like I'm outside 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm taking care of stuff I've got to do out here. We went and did 2 carts of groceries and supplies and preps today and everything, animal feed and all this other stuff. That's what you have to do. My head is right. I don't have a lot of debt. I'm not beholden to anybody for anything like that. And I've seen how minds are manipulated. And trying to overcome that is one of the first steps. And once you do, you're much better able to point yourself down your preparation journey, having a clear mind like that.
Yeah. And now I will say the one good thing, there is one good thing about when I catch these shows that have a message we don't agree with, it creates an opportunity to have a conversation with my kids. Yep. And now I have a 14, 10, and 4-year-old. So the level of a conversation that I have is different for each one. And what I was hearing the other day, I didn't even fully explain. I said, this is an adult topic. They're talking about such and such. It creates an opportunity for a conversation. We have to be talking to our kids age appropriately.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. And what I see going on out there with these kids and everything right now is that the maturity levels have dropped on them a lot over the last, since my kids, and mine are all in their late 30s, pushing 40 and everything. And there's a huge difference in the maturity level of them at the age that their kids are at now. And also, I kind of contribute that to society and some of the pressures that are being put on them out there. And the parents have a right to filter these messages because, places like Disney, they make no bones about it. Their corporate structure says this is the way it's going to be. They've got people that specialize in this. Back in my corporate days, we hired industrial psychologists to help us develop sales and targeted marketing programs. Okay, I was involved in that stuff. I know how it goes. It's crazy and everything. And it was, it's good to learn that type of stuff so that I'm better able to resist it. Even being an older person, it's not really of influence in the business world or anything like that. But that's just recognizing it and trying to get in there and stop it, or at least, like you said, move that to a conversation that's centered, on your family's moral values and moral compass is a huge thing. But people just absolutely have, right now, I always said, and I've said this practically every show, 70% of this country is just fine as long as the line isn't too long at Starbucks, the Amazon deliveries are getting through, and the cable TV bill is paid. If that's the case, then everybody else, shit could be coming down around them completely, and it wouldn't bother them if everything was in that case, And unfortunately, I listen to some what I think are some pretty smart dudes, vetted dudes, and everything else that hundreds of thousands of people listen to, and they're without a doubt saying we're going into one of the the worst times that we've seen. And so I think we all have to prepare for that. And and unfortunately, the last couple of years and the way the government's changed, the American people sat around and they let this stuff get to their kids, and now the turnaround is going to be horrendous on it. It's just terrible. Is that kind of how you see it, Amy? With your kids being homeschooled and everything, there is such a difference. Just talking to a couple of, talking to your kids there at the farmers market the other day, and kind of not really talking, but maybe having a little interaction with some couple of them that were on the inside there. I'm like, man, you guys got some work to do here.
Well, I want to tell you thank you, because you made a big impact on my daughter that I had with me there. She's been telling everybody who will listen to her and showing them, look at these flowers that Mr. Dale gave me. And I tried to pay him and he wouldn't let me. So you made quite the impact there, and I appreciate it.
Well, good. You see that, and this is what, this is how you have to do these things. These youth are heading this way. You're taking them the right way and everything else. And my wife and I sat down, we talked about these observations we've seen. And, back in the day, I did 12 years as a firefighter, paramedic is one of my careers and everything. And I was a young guy in those days. It was right when my wife and I had gotten together, and we pushed our kids into like going into the fire service or police, law enforcement or something like that. A couple of them worked with us, and 3 of the boys ended up in the Marine Corps and everything else like that, come out of it, okay, kind of thing. Got some problems here and there and everything like that. But it was like, I did push my kids because I thought that's something that would be good for them, and it didn't hurt them. And a couple of them, 3 of them end up in the military. One of them was a deputy sheriff. Two of them are still firefighter paramedics right now and everything. And so, yeah, it seemed like a good thing to do. So yeah, as a parent, I was guilty. I pushed them that way and everything. But if you don't, then the outside influences out there, are going to take over, and it's going to be extremely hard to overcome those.
Yeah. I want to circle back to what John was talking about in the beginning about about the lack of faith being a huge factor in not only the way this country is, but also as a parent, it breaks my heart when I hear about these things like school shootings. But I think that we are just all like-minded here and in agreement. And my 2 cents to add to that is it's not only a lack of faith that has made us the way that this country is now, is a lack of faith and a lack of family values. I mean, they're doing everything they can to break down the family unit. Oh, your parents don't know anything. Every TV show you watch, the mom and the dad look like idiots. And,
right. I think they do that, and I mean, in this whole thing where we're encouraging, young women to mutilate their bodies for some social ideological cause, you know what I mean? And you got surgeons and doctors that are doing this and everything. That's flat out evil. I mean, that's not what you should have probably been trained for, in the Hippocratic Oath. It's kind of a hard one, to handle on something like that. So yeah, I mean, there's
no faith, no roots, no sanctity of life, no value for life, and no identity.
And that's the thing, the identity. That's interesting. I mean, what do kids, where do they go? What are they going to do? And that's another place that our school system has tremendously failed these kids. And I think it's gotten worse in the last few years, is we're pushing them through and everything. And in my own personal experience, and it's close in my life, those kids are not ready to move on. You're merely, rubber stamping them. And where are they going to end up in 4 years? Okay, I mean, they'd be getting out of high school about that time, and I'm like, and you got a ways to go here,
I've studied a lot of cults, and almost every single cult, the minute you start to question someone about their belief system, if they're in a cult, they shut down and they disengage, and they don't want to hear what you have to say because you're questioning their beliefs that are built on basically a broken foundation, right? And that's how kids react now today when you ask them, when they say that a baby within a mother is merely a clump of cells, and you ask a simple question. Well, at what point does a clump of cells become human? Where do you draw the line? And how does that happen? How does that clump of cells scientifically become a human at that point? And they will disengage. They won't think about it. They won't try to answer your question. They will simply, Rob said he's trying to get back in, by the way. But they'll just simply disengage, and they'll leave unaffected. In other words, you can throw all the logic and all the truth at them, but they will just simply just walk away from you and still not question what they believe. And so we've raised these kids to not question. They don't question. It's this ideology is real. This ideology is right. And anybody that questions you, add whatever, they're either a racist or they're a homophobe or they're whatever, right? And so it's so much deeper. And like the problem with our younger generation has got to be fixed somehow, and it's got to be fixed by us as parents and grandparents getting involved in their lives at a very young age before the schools. And Aimee, God bless you for teaching your kids at school or at home. That's going to make all the difference in the world. Your kids are going to be much brighter, much better thinkers. I'm not going to say they're not going to turn out to be exactly like you. They may question things, but they're going to be more intelligent, critical thinkers, and they're going to have that ability to question what they believe. Yeah. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. in these, we've been slammed the last few weekends. I mean, there's so much to do here on the homestead. We have a 4-day weekend coming up where everybody's going to be home, and I am so thankful for it. There's, so much to do, of course, and we'll have all hands on deck. But I've been doing the Saturday market, flea markets, craft shows pretty heavy the last month. And God bless them. Everybody here just picks up the slack for me, milks the cow or does whatever that needs to be done while I'm out slinging earrings. But looking around, just like you did, Dale, looking around at these other people, other kids, my kids' age at these events, because I'm out in the public, I'm going, oh, God help us.
Yeah.
Or where are your parents? Or who let you wear that? But I'm looking and I'm going,
how did we get to this point?
I just go home and pray. You know what I mean? And my kids recognize it too. Not in a I'm better than you way, not in a judgmental way, but my kids know that they're different than the people around them. And even last weekend, Zoe said on her way home, she said, Mom, I'm not probably going to their house to play, am I? I said, no, but we could meet up at the park to play, and that would be just fine. So the moral compass, the values, how much values does a 10-year-old have? You're really growing and maturing still. And yet she has enough of a foundation to know right from wrong. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys follow. I study a lot in regards to faith in America, and this type of stuff. And we can see that there's a drastic decline in people who consider themselves not just Christians, but people of faith, right? It's dropping, but yet we see an increase in transgenderism. We see an increase in homosexuality. We see an increase in mental health disorders. We see all these increases, and it's almost identical to the decrease in faith. And math doesn't lie. And if you're going to sit here and try to deny the fact that that faith doesn't play a role, because listen, one of the fundamentals of Christianity is to love thy neighbor, love yourself, love God, love and love your neighbor to the point where it'll drive them crazy, right?
Sure.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
If we could, would you mutilate your body?
No, of course not.
Exactly.
Do something that you are not. Is that loving yourself? I don't think so.
No, well, that's obviously where you get into the confusion of it. That's, can you imagine kids, your daughters, for instance, you're teaching them, you're homeschooling them, you're taking them the right way, you're giving them the right moral compass. And then somewhere out of somewhere, this comes in and says, you need to do this in order to conform or whatever, and it's like, no, just ridiculous.
I really do believe that, we're created in the image of God. Everybody has an eternal soul, and that each person is beautiful and unique exactly as they were made from the moment of conception. That is a soul. That is a beautiful, unique individual. And I suppose if that's all I taught my kids ever, then that would be enough. But
yeah.
And
I think that's you're starting with a good moral compass on something like that. And you're just building a base foundation, and you keep going on that base and foundation, and it's going to change, it may take those kids, a little bit before they start questioning, even if it's questioning authority, hell, they probably do that every day, type of thing. Yeah. And, so at least they're, you're at that point now, and it's just, I've had couple of brief conversations with some of these younger individuals, and it's just like, no, I know you're capable of more than this. You just haven't been there, and you think, oh man, and then put yourself in the context. They've never been exposed to what we're thinking about. They haven't been taught and everything else, and so it's really difficult, to get on them for not being taught, because at some point in time, the adults in their life have let them down, and or making them over in some vicarious way into something, that they want to be or something. And that's not right. That just shouldn't happen.
Hi, Rob.
I made it.
Hey, welcome back, Rob. This is your show. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna
I
refresh.
got
'cause
totally
I'm locked
kicked
up.
out. I had to actually go to Chrome and change my browser. I couldn't get back in.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that was really weird. I've never had that happen before. I've tried every trick in the book over here. You guys wouldn't believe what I was doing.
Oh, you thought the president was going to call us for advice. Instead, he shut down your stream.
Apparently, yeah.
Didn't like what you're talking about.
So yeah, actually, I've been hearing some of your conversation. You guys are running a great show.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man. So I don't know where you guys are at, but I wanted to make sure that you guys talked about any driving, work changes, buying food, things you're doing different for schools or
Oh, yeah.
services. Like
I
we're
I
watch
talking
think we
about.
every
went
mile
off
I
on a-
drive.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
We went
every
off on a
mile
rabbit trail after I answered, so I want to hear what Tom says.
No,
Oh,
I watch.
we're all just coming in and out of the show. We all have an internet. I actually have noticed the internet actually quality's kind of dropped in the last month and a half. I don't know if it's because I'm on Starlink and it's been working great. And in the last month or so, I think Joe was trying to fix it. And yeah, so. But anyway, I'm glad we didn't go off the air though. So you guys are. I think that next show I'm just gonna set it up, let it run, and let you guys do all the talking.
Wait, it must work. There's a one of the radio stations down here in Bend. Their nighttime DJ that's on from 4 a.m. I think to 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. our time. Yeah, dude lives in Germany and everything. Yeah, and he runs the show from his computer there in Germany, and also it can be done.
We'll get it fixed. There. So I'm slowly getting my settings back to normal here, so I apologize. There, got that fixed. So anyway, guys, so I guess I was watching Appalachia Homestead, and she was also bringing up the same subject of it's like, are you guys ready for everything, and what are you doing different? How are you reacting to everything that's happening today with this inflation, all that stuff? And what's some advice you'd give out to people? And what's been working for you? Like, for example, I'm just showing these examples out and you guys can jump in, but like I did cancel a couple of silly things I don't have anymore, don't need anymore. And to me, that allows me to kind of make up the difference for how much it costs to fill my truck or do other things. So are you guys doing any major cutbacks at all? Or are you having family discussions? And are the kids involved too? That I'd like to hear about.
Well, I guess I'll jump in there. Is that my kids, yeah, some of them are with it, some of them aren't. Some of them are still, kind of denying that life could possibly be taking a turn from the way it's been for the last, few years, and times have been good. There, money and house prices and all this and that, and that's going to change dramatically and everything. And I think from, Diane and I live a pretty frugal lifestyle, pretty consistent. We're not big travelers or anything else like that. So, I mean, not any major cutbacks. It was kind of interesting. Today we were getting gas down in Redmond, and, I'm standing there watching the thing. I was washing the windows. It's ticking along, and I was almost in this sick, macabre sense of way. The thing was hitting $96 and it shut off, and I'm like, damn it, I was thinking it was going to go to 100, and then I could really complain, type of thing. And then I got back in the car and said, Dale, what are you thinking here and everything, and so change wise, a lot less. We're simple people. We can go out and drive around and have a good time. I could do some photography or something like that. So, I mean, don't have to spend a lot of money. And my main thing is that some of the information that I've seen come out in the last week or so from some economists, agricultural types and everything, our spring planted wheat is down dramatically. And that spring planted wheat is less of a percentage of the total wheat crop than fall winter planted wheat that will be starting to harvest in July. But the numbers are down on those as well. Somewhere around 25% is the number right now that crop will be less than last year. 25% on the U.S. wheat crop is a huge amount of wheat and everything else like that. And so this is kind of where we're headed. Not really happening right now, but let's see what happens in 2 or 3 months here. And so food, supplies, preps, things like that, that's money in the bank as far as I'm concerned. And I'll just keep spending on that stuff. And yeah, guess what? I'm going to have boxes and stuff stacked up in my spare bedroom or in the studio office here behind me and everything like that. But I just think that we're going to, and it was ironic. I think I sent Rob a picture of a bare store shelf a couple of weeks ago over here at Sisters and everything. And the shelves were wiped out. And I got another picture today. We were down at Weimar and there was an entire row of canning jars and all this other stuff. And it's packed solid. There's nobody in there picking stuff up or anything like this, And so we're grabbing a couple deals of these jars. We're going to try dry canning some potatoes and everything else like that. And to me, that was so damned ironic, is in that store, the Dollar General, the processed foods and everything else were completely wiped out. They were wiped out. And then you got these stores that have all these canning goods and the shelves are packed. People are just like, no, we're not going to do any of this stuff, and they had pretty good deals on canned goods and everything. And so, I mean, I probably should have taken the pickup. And the old Explorer is kind of heavy coming home today with chicken food and all that. But, and so for us, that's just what it is. Just start piling food up and everything and see where we go from there.
And that's one thing I've been hearing a lot of is, so people, when they stock up, they start buying all these processed foods and stuff. And so those are the things that are running out first. And of course, homesteading, we're not actually telling people to do processed food. We're talking about make your own food, buy vegetables, buy real foods and make your own recipes and all that kind of stuff. And because really the first thing that's going to go is the processed foods, those instant this, instant that, those are getting wiped out. And I'm hearing that
they are. So where do you go from there? I mean, what's the next step here? I mean, logically, you're probably going to start getting into like detergents and canned goods and some of that stuff that's not nearly as perishable. I mean, a lot shorter life. I mean, even the prices on the canned goods were there, but I looked at this thing and they had piles of these things and I go, well, I mean, if you're going to, you're not going to starve, you get some of this stuff and everything. So what does that say about the American people? And you think they should, Rom, but you'd be surprised. Most of the American people have no ability whatsoever to prepare their own food. I know people that spend $1,000 a month on takeout and going out to eat. That is absolutely freaking insane.
It's like Amy brought up something that is a lost art. My wife can, because we're in square dancing, we used to make a lot of square dance dresses and stuff for the kids and ourselves and our own kids and all that. And Sherry's always been able to sew. But she was like, how many people don't even know how to sew anymore?
Yeah.
No,
or can't even put a button on.
That's the thing. Can't even sew a button on. What Amy says, I mean, I'm not probably going to sit down and rip off a shirt or anything else like that. But I mean, I can sew buttons and everything else like that. And people don't have that basic ability. I mean, we're talking about some basic, I mean, how many people can't drive a stick shift car? I mean,
And that's just a shame because that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as simple as not being able to sew on a button, if you can't sew your own shirt, can you fix what you already have? You know what I mean? Like as simple as I cannot buy socks. There's no socks in the store. I have no money, but I can sew up the holes in the socks I have. I know not everybody needs to go take a sewing class, but can you take care of what you already have if you couldn't get any more? Is kind of what I think about.
I got a kick out, and you brought up something. I know we're running out of time here, but Glenn Beck had a show yesterday where he was interviewing a gal, and they both had jeans on with holes in them. You can buy them that way, right? And they laughed for a minute and goes, "How many people?" It's like in the old days, all of our moms would always patch our pants all the time.
Iron on patches.
Yeah. And so, but the funny thing he said is, people are buying clothing and things that look used, or you can even buy pants that have paint all over them. And it's like, we're so lazy, we have to buy clothes that looks like we actually did some work. And I got to thinking about that. I go, oh my gosh, that is pathetic.
I had
I have a
somebody
question.
wife posted
Oh.
a picture of me on Facebook the other day, and she says, can I get this homeless guy to stop wearing these clothes around the farm here and everything?" I was like, "Those are my awesome clothes. I'm in them forever."
Yeah, John.
I was going to ask a question, and maybe we can talk about this on a upcoming show or something like that. But this is all my thought about it is if inflation continues to increase much faster than wages are, right? And I don't know what rent and that type of thing that's up in Oregon if it's being impacted as quickly as it is here in Arizona. But rent, people are seeing their rent increase by $800 or $900 a month.
Wow.
So they go to sign their new lease and it's going up $800 to $900 a month. Are we going to be seeing really our homes multi-generational? Are we going to see our younger kids that are out that can't make it on their own anymore? Because I look at my son's a teacher, and Arizona teachers, they don't make a whole lot of money.
Yep.
And his girlfriend is a teacher's aide, so they don't make very much money. They're barely hanging on now as it is. If we see gas prices go up another gallon, another $1 per gallon, we see food continue to increase in rent. If their rent goes up $400 or $500, even though they're trying to do everything right, they just can't make it. So are we going to be seeing families living together?
And the funny thing is what you're bringing up is most cultures, that's how it is.
That's how they live already, right?
Yeah.
Except
'Cause we're
except
about
the
the only
American
country that doesn't do it.
Yeah, the U.S. is not. They're not into that kind of stuff, and absolutely what John's saying there is going to happen. You're going to see multi-generational thing. We've got a couple of kids in our family that decided they don't or don't want to live in Oregon anymore, and they've moved away and everything. That's kind of sad, for us and everything. But they got to do what they got to do. Rents are going up. Ours are capped a little bit. They can't do that. Right now here on Crooked River Ranch, we're looking at $300 a square foot on the low end for a house piece of property. That will vary with size of property, but I mean from an overall average, you can. So it's ridiculous. You're absolutely going to see more of that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost John this time.
Yeah, that would be a great
Hey, he's
topic
back.
for
I'm
a
here.
whole show in itself.
I
was
think
picking
so
my
because
teeth.
That's a great
It-
subject.
the dynamics and how you make that work. Amy's obviously an expert at this and everything because her family is still in the same place and everything, and there are dynamics and things that you have to work out. And I mean, if we could talk about that and help people out, type of thing, because for whatever reason this is going to happen, each generation has its share of bad financial decisions, and this one's not going to be any different at all. A lot of people are making bad decisions right now.
Yeah, and when it comes to the culture thing, is like some of the questions I have is like, how do you set up like the leadership scenario in that? How do you set up generational things in that stuff? How do you, if you have children involved, how do you allow grandparents to have the same say as the parents do? Is there a limit? Do you have to either sit down and have these discussions as a family? Like this, as parents, grandparents, this is what I want you to do, but I'd like you to not go into this area. Do you have those kind of talks? And so that is a wonderful, wonderful subject. And I'd actually love to bring that up in the next show.
Yeah, because I believe it's imminent. I believe that we're going to see it. It's going to happen. And
it's like,
I don't know what the rest of the country's like. I only see Arizona because that's the bubble that I live in.
It's worse.
We're seeing just drastic inflation, hyperinflation, and it's just not going to be good.
Yeah. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap this this show up for today. Sorry about my technical thing. I've never had that happen before, but it was kind of funny. You guys did great. Thank you so much. So those of you who've been watching and have been in and out of the show here, thank you for watching. But those that missed the show after it's not live anymore, please leave comments, say hello. Let us know subjects you'd like us to talk about, because we get so many views after the show's over. And it's like, please take the time and leave a note with us. And yeah, I'm running a little bit over, but I just don't care. So guys, thank you so much, Amy, Dale, John. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Rob.
Great.
Thanks,
All right.
Rob.
All right. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you very much for watching our video. Please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our videos all over the whole wide world. Thanks.